So there's been a lot of talk about SolarCoin. So today we're going to explain about that and what it's about. And it's sorry?
Are we getting any solar coins?
You might, yeah. And we're here to, well, obviously explain that what SolarCoin is about is really it's about enabling prosumers to participate into the energy transition. And I'll explain also why we need that energy transition. I mean, obviously there's a lot behind that. I want to thank again Erwin Small, who was presenting Grid Singularity, because essentially we come with SolarCoin as an additional tool to whatever that these companies are doing. So you're going to hear a lot about peer-to-peer energy transfer, billing obviously with the blockchain. And there's not only one company which is doing that. There's Grid Singularity, there's also LO3 Energy, and there's a couple of other ones. There's Power Ledger, for example. And so just to mention a couple of these, all right, let's put this a bit bigger. Just to mention a couple of these companies, we act with SolarCoin as an additional tool to the solar industry, to utilities, to prosumers, solar asset managers, and blockchain companies. So I would say it's a comprehensive solution using blockchain version 1.0 to incentivize prosumers to participate into the energy transition and basically to deliver energy into the grid. Couple of projects which you've heard about is the Brooklyn microgrid, for example. I'm sure you're all aware of that one. Electron is more into the gas market. Chain of Things is more about IoT, so securing IoT hardware so that they're not going to be hacked. An electric chain is about making data open freely to academia and people who want to participate with the SolarCoin blockchain and use the SolarCoin blockchain for open source solutions. The SolarCoin blockchain is open source, so anybody can actually use it, take it off the shelf and make any projects out of it. You can join the SolarCoin Slack, for example, the electric chain Slack. We have a couple of projects over there, including the Electricity. We've mentioned that one also. And a couple of the leading projects, obviously, is peer-to-peer energy transfer. Now, in the peer-to-peer model, people are going to be billing in euros here in Germany, in Thai baht on the islands, and they're going to receive solar coins on top of that for producing solar energy. And why would they actually be receiving solar coins? I mean, what is the need for that additional token? It turns out that people have to be motivated. People lack the financial stimulus to producing energy. And so basically, a solar coin comes in as an additional benefit to them. It increases the return on investment for the solar installation, decreases the payback time, and we hand it out at the rate of 1 solar coin per megawatt hour. We're also coupling it with carbon credits, which means in that case then that we can actually liquefy the market of carbon credits, which traditionally has been an over-the-counter market, so very illiquid. And so anybody who's involved into the solar energy will get this also, that it's a necessity. We need to make polluters pay for the amount of carbon which they're producing. And if we can couple that to a blockchain, it means that we can actually trade that tool and help people, I would say, into delivering and getting out more benefit out of their solar installation. The SolarCoin blockchain uses POST algorithm. So we did use POW, so that was a proof of work. We switched to POST, which is proof of stake time, which essentially enables anybody to participate at the same rate into the system. So it doesn't matter if you have a big solar field or if you have a small solar field, a small solar installation, you will receive solar coins as an incentive. And at the same time, because you're participating into the network as a node, you will also validate the transactions. It can be transactions for solar power. It can also be transactions, it can also be data, as we mentioned with the electric chain. And by doing that, using POST, what happens is that we use much less energy than the POW blockchain, so than Bitcoin. We actually use between 3% and 7% of the energy which is used with the Bitcoin blockchain. And so that's quite of interest because obviously with Bitcoin you need hardware to mine Bitcoin, and with SolarCoin the hardware is actually your solar panels. You receive SolarCoin for free. It comes on top of government-backed subsidies. So you'll receive your feed-in tariff in euros, in dollars, whichever, or your green certificate, depending on the market. And on top of that, you will receive these free solar coins. And so essentially the mining is done by your solar installation instead of your servers. So you don't need to buy additional equipment, and that additional equipment actually doesn't need more energy to mine Bitcoin in that case. And so in doing that, obviously what we're looking at is creating a market, a network of participants who are going to trade using SolarCoin as a unit of trade. And as the network evolves, as it gets bigger, then people can actually start increasing the value of the coin. Essentially, we have also a solution to anybody who's involved within the solar industry. So if you're a solar manufacturer of inverter equipment, data loggers, then we can very easily embed a script onto the inverter or onto the data logger so that you will receive through your data logger solar coins. We're discussing with a number of inverter providers who can actually embed SolarCoin directly there. We're also discussing with a number of monitoring platforms who can actually embed SolarCoin onto the monitoring platform. And if you're a power provider, so a prosumer, a typical prosumer, then you can simply register your solar installation to the SolarCoin network and receive solar coins for that. So that will be every 6 months. In that case, it's not very dynamic, but you will receive solar coins. And if you are a data logger producer, or if you're interested into the Raspberry Pi, then what you will do is you will dynamically receive solar coins through the Raspberry Pi. So think about the Raspberry Pi as being able, with a $10 piece of equipment, to enable you to receive solar coins. And so what is the need for solar power? Or why should we actually get more solar power? Well, it turns out that there's a lot of pollution out there. You can track this right here, and basically anything which is in orange is actually in a bad shape. And so there's, well, pollution levels, there's not enough subsidies, access to finance is difficult, and if you're in the solar industry, you also see that the subsidy scheme have not been working very well. They have been yo-yoing, actually. If you look at the case for Germany, for example, it costs the taxpayer 40 billion euros yearly to run the subsidy scheme, which is a lot of money, obviously. And every country doesn't have that fiscal stimulus to do it, to run these schemes. And so obviously, there is a need for incentivizing the market to produce solar energy. Currently, there's about 300 gigawatt already installed of solar capacity, and that's growing to 5,000 gigawatts, according to Bloomberg Finance and according to the International Energy Agency. So solar is actually going to be representing fully 50% of the energy needs, the world's energy needs. And so SolarCoin acts in there as a way to help these prosumers onboarding peer-to-peer infrastructure. Obviously, as we've seen, a lot of these businesses, a lot of this solar power is actually going to be integrated into developing nations. So think Africa with the electricity, think India, obviously, and so think also microgrids then, in that case. And as a data logger, so as a monitoring platform, integrating SolarCoin is a simple process. It's a three-step process, basically. It's an API which is embedded directly onto the the monitoring platform. And so it enables you to receive your solar coins directly from your solar installation through the Raspberry Pi, possibly, or through your data logger, through your monitoring platform, and directly to your SolarCoin wallet. That's already active. So, and then afterwards, you can trade your solar coins into euros, Swiss francs, if you use the Lucca exchange, for example, or if you use Bittrex as well. Again, it's open source, so anybody can participate into it. There's a number of partners, obviously, already using the SolarCoin blockchain. We have the electric chain, specifically registered as an NPO for data, for academics purposes. Then there's SolarChain in Tel Aviv. They were accelerated by the IBM accelerator. And so essentially they register solar installation owners to the SolarCoin program, and so does Sol Crypto in the Asia Pacific region. And the additional benefit for Sol Crypto is that they're also delivering on data logger technology, essentially copying the script, the Raspberry Pi script, which I just mentioned, directly onto inverters. Oh yeah. So here I'll show a short video. Essentially what you're seeing here is the data logger in action. So this Raspberry Pi is a microcomputer, so it's a data logger. And what it's going to do, it's going to harvest information from a solar installation, which is in England, in this case in England. It's connected from the solar installation to the monitoring platform, and from the monitoring platform to the Raspberry Pi, which has this script running on it, and by executing the script communicates to the blockchain, and from the blockchain back to the wallet. It does that every 90 seconds. So if you have a big solar field, obviously, you might be intent of getting incentivized on a 90-second basis, which means essentially that you can receive production, an incentive, on a live basis. What we see here, for example, is the SolarCoin wallet address, the size of the system, which is a SolarWorld 265 watt peak mono inverter, in-phase inverter, a system size of 4 kilowatt, the exact coordinates, which is in England then in this case, and the message which can be changed. So you can actually publish information, the information which you want, to the blockchain. And what we're going to see is that every 86 seconds specifically, it's publishing that message to the SolarCoin blockchain, and the SolarCoin blockchain is sending it to the wallet. Yeah. Second time. All right, here we go. So what you're seeing here is the script, which is running. Again, the size, so all of the information which was embedded onto the data logger is reproduced here through the script onto the blockchain. Mentions, for example, we're using proof of stake, the block size, so the block count. And if you look up into the SolarCoin blockchain explorer, you will have that exact information of the block count. Same block count, as you can see. And if you, here we go. And if you check the message, which in this case is the hash, you would see the message appearing of the amount of energy produced. And you can do that over and over again, every 90 seconds then. Oh. I'm going to stop here. All right, and so essentially this is what any inverter can do from now, and so it can publish information directly to the SolarCoin blockchain then. Another solution which we're also working on is on crowdfunding. And so in that case, you probably have heard of the Sun Exchange, with which you can actually crowdfund solar installations using Bitcoin. And so what it does with SolarCoin, you can add this additional benefit for solar power producers and crowdfunders. And the last project which we want to discuss, obviously, is the Electroseed. And so with the Electroseed, what we're going to do is specifically, on top of the peer-to-peer applications, incentivize people to produce their power, their energy. We've pitched at the United Nations a couple of times, actually. As some of you might know, we're also the first recognized, supranational recognized, so by IRENA, cryptocurrency. And well, we're working with quite a number of partners, MAPI, obviously, Solar Power Europe, which is the European Solar Association. And just as of today, the European Solar Association has also published, if any of you are at Intersolar, they've published today the industry commitments on digitalization. So SolarCoin is taking part into the digital task force at Solar Power Europe. And specifically, one of those commitments is on peer-to-peer exchanges. And so what we're seeing is regulation being formed specifically for peer-to-peer energy exchange and market incentivization using blockchain technology as well. That's it for me. Thank you. Question?
Couple of questions, perhaps?
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. It was great, and it's beautiful to hear how many implications you have and how easy you're able to reach so many people. And that's also a point where my question leads to. As I got it right, your SolarCoin is a pre-mined coin.
Correct.
So my question is, who owns the coin, and is it possible that you run out of coins if, like, a huge number?
Yeah, sure. That's a very good question. So it is a pre-mined coin. There's about 97.5 billion coins which have been pre-mined and set onto different wallets, so reserve accounts. And what we're doing with that, we're also working with IBM, for example, on adding artificial intelligence to that, so that the coins will be automatically handed out to the power producers without human intervention. So think of the SolarCoin Foundation as being an NPO, first of all, a foundation. But then, so there's a couple of people behind it, but we want these people to get out of it, obviously. And that's going to be done using artificial intelligence. Yeah. Yeah.
Will you run out of coins?
Oh yeah. And we will run out of coins, just like Bitcoin. So once the program has been designed for 40 years, and so at the end of those 40 years, we will have, well, we hope we will have succeeded in the mission then of incentivizing the market for producing solar power. And then just like any coin, just like Bitcoin, then the coins might appreciate, might continue appreciating, but there will be no more coins being mined. Mined by the sun. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Please.
Is the mining of the coins is just limited to the sun energy, or is solar power installations, or other forms of energy?
We work with CSP, so concentrated solar. Yeah.
Okay.
So you would receive coins per megawatt hour for concentrated solar. But we don't work with solar thermal. So if there's a lot of countries. I'm thinking in Greece, for example, in Israel, there's a lot of thermal collectors for hot water, and we don't hand out solar coins for those. No. And such as the same for wind power. We see SolarCoin as being a tool to incentivize decentralized applications, and we don't see wind, for example, as being a decentralized system, because usually you have a lot of, SPVs, a little number of SPVs which have been set up, to operate the specific wind park, for example. So think EDF, for example, in France. They probably own the whole market in France. So we wouldn't want to incentivize those guys, no. They make enough money.
So you don't consider the wind power?
To the extent that,
It's yet to be.
yeah, so to the extent that you could couple wind to solar,
Okay.
if there's a formula, I'm not sure of a formula, maybe we could do that, but we haven't looked into it at all, no. Yeah, it's specifically designed for solar, yeah. Right, yeah.
How do you protect from the fake installations?
On the hacking,
Yeah, on hacking. If I install something fake and I put it online, how
yeah. Well, that's a very good question as well. So we require a number of documents. In the case of a monitoring platform, we're going to work with the data loggers, which have been set up. And we will harvest information on the existence and the validity of that system, so as to, well, check if that installation in that specific place is actually producing what the monitoring platform is saying that it produces.
validation is somehow centralized? It's not decentralized.
Correct.
Blockchain
Yeah,
sense.
correct. Yeah, that's right. But the system itself is, well, installed in a different coordinate. I mean, they're all in different locations. So you have a private household, for example, in this street, and then another private household in another street. And so we could compare the amount of energy produced between both. Obviously, if you have a difference more than X%, then with the same configuration and the same modules, then you can deduct that that solar installation is not really, well, is fake. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I need to make one comment. So I have been working with policy making for solar energy for about 10 years now.
Sure.
Your presentation was awesome, just to give it policy perspective and a market perspective. So electricity is trading on wholesale prices somewhere between, I don't know, a megawatt hour of coal costs somewhere between $20 and $40 per megawatt hour, right? Here what we're talking about, like solar energy in the past 15 years has been met to subsidies everywhere in the world. We would not have any solar energy in the world if governments hadn't subsidized that. Germany was the biggest market which was subsidizing very heavily, very heavily. We're still paying a lot of money for this, which is great, I love it. But everybody realized also that these subsidies are not viable and they can't go anywhere. So all the subsidies that everywhere in the world are being cut down. So solar is hitting this valley at the moment where they don't have these subsidies anymore, but they're still they're almost competitive to fossil fuel, but not yet. SolarCoin is the first global incentive for solar energy, which doesn't cost the government a freaking dime. And it has it is still we're at a level where 50,000 people use solar coins. It's nothing.
Yeah.
So
it's growing. Yeah.
There's a fantastic article in a book by Nick Gogetti, who is which is the nature of value, where he's describing how digital currencies get their value. The whole idea is it is about the network character. You know, the more you create a network, if you connect nodes, the more value the network gets. So if you look in there, I don't know, he's written this like 3-4 years ago.
Correct.
He's putting a table on which is setting up a correlation on how many nodes, how many people use solar coin, and how the value of the coin will increase. In the past 3 years, it has been exactly developed as he has suggested. So what he was suggesting in this article is that the price of the coin could go up somewhere to $20 per megawatt hour. Whether this is true or not, I'm not saying, but it seems to be on a very good track. If it just reaches $1, it is a serious incentive.
Yeah, it is.
Currently, I don't know, solar feed-in tariffs are somewhere around, I don't know, around 10 euro cents per kilowatt hour, which is $1 per megawatt hour. Which is $100 per megawatt hour. So if SolarCoin as an additional incentive would add 1% to this calculation as an incentive. And for solar companies, they are calculating with their very, very, very sharp pen. So $1 would be on the map it would be for all investors in solar energy. They would start to realize, dude, that is serious. It's still $1, but let's go. I mean, if that goes to 10, then it's a 10% additional incentive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm really, really enthusiastic and excited about this, and I think it is a matter of like the solar industry hasn't really. I was into solar the past 2 days. Nobody knows this. Nobody realizes it. Nobody understands it. I mean, like, you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
awesome,
hard
right?
part.
But I'm saying, like, this is something we need to really talk to people and tell them, like, look at this exactly. I think the word air miles for solar is, you know, an understatement.
Sure.
By much. You know?
Yeah, I want to add to that as well that, well, first of all, on the solar industry, they've seen Bitcoin, and so obviously from their side, there's been a lot of negative information about Bitcoin. That's the only thing which they know. I mean, they've seen the bad news about it in the newspaper. But let alone that, what I want to talk about is also about the price of electricity. In the future, we're not going to be paying the price per megawatt hour, but the capacity which you need. So say if you're a household and at any moment in time you know that your peak capacity is going to be, say, 10 kilowatt peak, that's the energy which will be billed on a 24-hour basis, because that's the amount of energy which you need. It also means that the energy which you're producing is going to go to, well, the price of that energy is going to go very, very low. We're already reaching in Dubai, for example. Obviously, they get more sunshine, but the price of electricity over there is already $20 per megawatt hour. And so, indeed, I mean, if SolarCoin is an additional incentive, say $1 or $5, then in that case, per megawatt, then obviously the IRR of your solar installation increases. Yeah. There was a question over there.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to terms of security. How do you go about preventing leakage of your email comments?
Oh, yeah. Well, we don't. At this moment in time, we don't have anything. We're working on it. So that's a big thing. So.
If there's some security...
Yeah, they're offline. So to answer your question, these reserve coins are all offline, so they wouldn't be hacked in the first place. But it is true that you would have to trust in the first steps, I would say, in the initial steps of the SolarCoin Foundation, you would have to trust it as a central authority issuing the coins. And validating, I would say, the amount of solar coins being issued. And so to that extent, that's one of the reasons why we want artificial intelligence to be embedded in there, and basically to handle those coins instead of in the name of the SolarCoin Foundation. And that's being done right now. So I'm pretty confident about it, yeah. The objective being to incentivize for global solar power uptake and not to run away with 98 billion coins out there. Yeah.
Okay, let's thank our speaker.
All right.